Hi guys, and welcome back to another Championship video. Now we're moving on to round 16, quick recap on round 15, and guess what? I got no scores correct, again. That's 2 rounds in a row for the Championship now that I've got no scores correct. So the title of this video should probably be, Will I Make It 3? But hopefully not, and hopefully we can start picking up a few scores again because I've been off it recently. And I'm pretty sure I'll pick up at least one here. So let's see what I've predicted. And starting off with Blues versus Bristol City. Both of these teams are on 19 points. And Bristol City are decent away. But their last away result was a 3-0 loss to West Brom. Now their last result in the league was against Barnsley at the weekend. They did win 2-1. However, it's hard to judge anyone for beating Barnsley, as Barnsley were like Cardiff. They're just a team that cannot pick up any points at the moment. So, with that being said, moving on to Blues, we beat Middlesbrough 2-0. Good performance, solid all over the pitch, and we're starting to get a bit of a run going here. We've won 2 in a row, and it's against 2 sides that have been in decent form. Swansea had won 2 before we played against them, and we won 2-1. Middlesbrough, they'd won 3, and they won them all 2-0. And then they played us, and we beat them 2-0. So we're in good form at the moment, and let's hope we can keep it going. The goals had obviously dried up, but the last 2 games we've played, we've scored 2 goals. And I'm going to go for another 2 here. Blues to win, 2-1. On to Coventry versus Swansea next. And Coventry, at the weekend, they beat Hull away 1-0. Swansea, they were at home against Peterborough, and they won 3-0. Now, the thing I'm going to focus on for this one is home and away form. Coventry at home, played 7, won 6, drew 1. So they're brilliant at home. Swansea away, they've won 1, drew 2, lost 4. So for that reason, I'm going to back Coventry at home because they never tend to not win. And although their last home game was in a 1-1 draw against Derby, I think they're going to get back to winning ways here in a tight game. But Coventry will run out winners, 2-1. Luton versus Middlesbrough next, and both these teams are on 21 points. And they both lost 2-0 at the weekend. Luton losing 2-0 to Preston, and Middlesbrough losing 2-0 against Blues. Funny thing about Middlesbrough is their last 6 games have ended 2-0, and they've won 4 and lost 2. For this one, I was tempted to go for a bit of a tighter game, but until they stop getting 2-0 scorelines, I'm just going to go for it. So, who's going to win this one is the question. And I'm just edging Luton. I think it will be a tight game in my head, but screw it. I'm just going to go for the 2-0 thing at the moment because it keeps happening. So Luton to win, 2-0. On to Millwall versus Reading. And Millwall, they were in good form. They'd won 2 in a row, but then they lost 1-0 to Huddersfield. Reading, they've lost 3 in a row, and the latest one was a 2-0 loss to Bournemouth. For this, I think it's difficult. I was going to go for a draw, but Reading have only drawn 1 game so far this season, and I think if I had to choose a team to win, I'd go for Millwall. So I'm going to go for a low scoring Millwall win, 1-0. Forest versus Sheffield United next, and Forest, they were unbeaten under Steve Cooper, but then they lost 4-0 to Fulham and drew 1-1 with QPR, so they were winning a lot. It started slipping over recent weeks, but I don't think it's much to worry about, as Fulham, they're flying at the moment, they can't stop winning, and QPR, they can get a result anywhere. Sheffield United, however, are inconsistent. Their last game was a 1-0 loss to Blackpool, and I think it will be tight, but I just fancy Forest in this, so I'm going Forest to win, 2-1. Peterborough versus Huddersfield next, and Peterborough, they lost 3-0 to Swansea in their last game. However, their last home game, they beat QPR 2-1 and they're much better at home than they are away. Huddersfield, they beat Millwall 1-0, which is a very good result. But for some reason, if you tally up all the Huddersfield results I've predicted so far, I don't think I've had them to win more than 3 times, yet they're sitting 5th in the league. So I feel like I really underestimate Huddersfield. I don't know what it is about them, but I just don't really see them winning often, and they're proving me wrong. They are winning quite a few games, hence why they're so high up in the table. But I'm going to do it again. Peterborough at home, as I said, they are better at home and they've had some good results. They drew 0-0 with Bournemouth, and they're the only team to get a point out of Bournemouth in Bournemouth's last 10 games. I don't know what it is, but I'm just not going to back Huddersfield here. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. League leaders Bournemouth take on Preston, and Bournemouth, they're still unbeaten. They've won 5 in a row, conceding 1 in that time, and they've won 9 of their last 10, with the only points dropped being a draw with Peterborough. So Bournemouth are absolutely flying. If they carry on in this form, they will break the points record for a Championship season. And I don't know, they just don't look like losing anytime soon. Maybe when they play Fulham, but for now, they just look unstoppable. Preston, they did win 2-0 against Luton, but they're very inconsistent. And I can't really get a read on them at the moment, as they do tend to have very staggered results here and there. So for this, I don't think it matters, because Bournemouth, as I said, unstoppable at the moment, and I just can't see them conceding in this one. I'm going to go Bournemouth to win 2-0. Now this game should be very entertaining. Barnsley versus Derby. And yes, that was my attempt at a sarcastic joke, because this should be very boring. Now Barnsley, they've lost 7 in a row, and if that continues, Marcus Shop will probably be gone. It could potentially be this game if they do lose it, and they only have 1 win so far this season, which is the lowest amount, and the only reason they're not bottom is because of Derby's point deduction, as Barnsley have technically picked up the least points this season. Derby, bottom of the league, they would be outside the relegation zone if they didn't have that 12-point deduction, but they are drawing too many games at the moment. They haven't won in their last 5, with 4 draws, and then their latest game being a 2-1 loss to Blackburn. I can see them just edging this, as Barnsley are terrible. So, Derby to win it 1-0. Now the next game should actually be entertaining. It's Blackburn versus Fulham. Now Blackburn, they've won 2 in a row, and it's got them to just outside the playoffs in 7th place. However, there's a lot of teams around there on the same amount of points and very close. So, if they lose this game, they'll probably drop down to about 11th. Fulham, they are absolutely flying. They've won 4 in a row. The last one was against their promotion rivals, West Brom, and it was 3-0. So, it was a brilliant performance. And who got all 3 goals? None other than Mitrovic. It is surprising that he managed to get a hat-trick in such a big game. What's even more surprising is, although he's top scorer in the Championship, which normally happens, 18 goals in 15 games. That is an incredible return, and if he carries on in this form, he's gonna break some records, definitely. For, mainly getting more goals than games, because that's never been done in the Championship. So, hopefully he goes on and keeps scoring, although I'm pretty sure the Blackburn fans will hope they can keep him out. I don't think they will, so I reckon Mitrovic will score in this game, and Fulham will win 3-1. On to Blackpool versus Stoke. And Blackpool, along with Coventry and Huddersfield, are another surprising team that are sitting in the playoffs. They're in 6th place, they've won 3 in a row, and they're absolutely flying. They've only lost 1 of their last 8, and out of the newly promoted teams, they just will not stop climbing, and they're putting in brilliant performances. Stoke, what has happened? They lost 3 in a row, and then they played against Cardiff. They were 3-0 up. You just sort of thought, they've won this now. Cardiff fans probably started going home. And then in the space of 5 minutes, Cardiff pull it back to 3-3, and that's how it ends. Imagine if you're a Cardiff or Stoke fan, and you went to the toilet, 3-0 down, 3-0 up, you come back, and it's 3-all. Absolutely crazy. I don't know how Stoke managed to let that one slip, but they did. Fair play to Cardiff in it. But it just shows that Stoke, they've got issues at the moment. Now last week, Blackpool I predicted to win 3-2. They won 1-0. This week, I'm going to do the same. Blackpool to win 3-2. On to Cardiff versus QPR. And Cardiff, they'd lost 8 games in a row before that crazy 3-all draw with Stoke. QPR, they're hard to read at the moment. Their last 2 games have been a 2-1 loss to Peterborough and then a 1-all draw with Forest. For this, I'm going to go with the trend of Cardiff getting a draw again because it was their first game without Mick McCarthy in charge. They picked up a crazy draw, although they probably shouldn't have because they were 3-0 down. And it may have been down to Stoke just sort of going a bit off the mark and getting a bit confident and taking their foot off the gas. But they pulled it back. I think they'll probably end up doing the same here, although not by such a high score. I can see QPR going 1-0 up, Cardiff pulling it back, and it ending that way. So, a 1-all draw. And finally, it's West Brom versus Hull. And West Brom, they're sitting in 3rd, but those 2 automatic promotion places are slipping away from them. I know it's very early, they can pull it back, but the gap's only got wider, with Fulham in 2nd, beating them in the last game 3-0. West Brom's last 6 results have read win, loss, win, loss, win, loss, which would suggest that they're going to win here. And I'd be a bit worried if they didn't, as they're playing a Hull side who have lost 4 in a row, although 3 of those have only been by a 1-goal margin, but their issue lies in front of goal. They've scored the least in the division with 9 goals in 15 games, which is just not good enough if you want to stay in the division. So I think a lot of people will be going for West Brom in this game, and me included. I don't really know how you can't. So West Brom to win this 2-0. So that's it. Those are my predictions for round 16 of the Championship. Let me know in the comments what you agree with, what you disagree with, and put your predictions down in the comments. Please like the video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more Championship content. Hopefully we can start getting some scores right this week, and up the Blues.